the line Monday night. Bills, Jets. Aaron Rodgers' team playing their first game under interim head coach Jeff Ulbrich in the wake of the firing of Robert Saleh. Rodgers was on yesterday with McAfee. Had a lot to say, including this about his former head coach.
I love Coach Saleh. We have a very solid relationship. We have since, I met him in 2021 and had a nice conversation when they came and visited us for joint practices. He was a big reason why I came to the Jets. As far as any of the ridiculous allegations out there, I'm not going to spend more than one sentence in response to it, and that is that I resent any of those accusations because they're patently false. And it's interesting the amount of power that people think that I have, which I don't.
Okay, so that obviously, well, there's just a lot to unpack there. So, Schefty, let's start unpacking it. What do the folks need to know?
I think that Aaron Rodgers came off believable there. And I think that this is a Woody Johnson decision. And there are people who believe that Woody Johnson was not a big fan of Robert Saleh. That is ultimately what did him in the end. Basically, if we go back to when he was hired, Christopher Johnson was running the organization while he was the ambassador over in the UK. And he came back and got to meet the new head coach of the Jets that he signed off on. But I don't know that Robert Saleh ever felt the support that he felt like he should have gotten from the owner. And I don't know that Woody Johnson ever provided it to him in a certain way. And I think this is a Woody Johnson decision, not an Aaron Rodgers decision. This is Woody Johnson. And the big thing is that's behind them, Greeny. Now the idea is, where do they go from here? Who is running the offense? Is it Nathaniel Hackett with the offense looking sluggish the way it has?
Orlovsky is, as you're talking, Orlovsky is frantically shaking his head.
32nd ranked rushing offense in the NFL? Or is Jeff Ulbrich, as the interim head coach who's replaced Robert Saleh, going to turn to Todd Downing to run this offense? That is what awaits this team that many people believe is still a playoff team. Robert Saleh himself believes this team is a playoff team, and now we'll see if they can get that done. Dan.
That's where I would start. I would make a change at play caller. I would move from Nathaniel Hackett and go to Todd Downing, understanding that the relationship with Aaron Rodgers matters. They got to play better football. Number one, this is one of the least detailed offenses in the NFL over the past couple weeks. And two, all they do is string together mistakes rather than makes as an offense. So they have to stop taking turns ruining plays. One play, it's the offensive line. The next play, it's Garrett Wilson not being on the same page. The next play, it's Aaron Rodgers making a miss on a throw. The next play, it's their tight ends who are terrible in the run game, not making blocks. That comes down to details. That comes down to emphasis. That comes down to coaching. That's why, as much as the relationship with Aaron matters, I get all that. He could still be a quarterback coach type of thing. The play calling should change because the attention to detail hasn't.
But if the play calling changes, the play caller changes, how much of the offense changes? Because you've said it numerous times here.
Motion.
There's no shifts, there's no motion. But that's a Rodgers thing. So, all right, if Todd Downing takes over, you can't become a totally new offense.
No, and I don't think you want to, Mac. You know that, right? I don't think you want to become a completely different offense. But there needs to be an evolution of it. But I would say this, as much as I am a believer in that, and a proponent of that, if you watch, there are plays there that should be getting made that aren't being getting made because there's a drop, there's a missed throw, like if you watch their offensive line, they never get to linebackers. That's a details thing. So there needs to be more of an emphasis on the details. Absolutely, there needs to be a scheme infusion, but that's not going to happen overnight.
And I think part of the emphasis, got to get the ball to Breece Hall. Like, you're talking about a guy that last year we looked at as far as him catching the ball or running it out of the backfield. He was one of their best weapons on the offensive side of the ball. And so far, you look at the last two games, he's had one explosive play and 24 touches. We saw Breece Hall coming off an ACL where he's taken off down the sideline, and we haven't seen that at all this season. So to your point, Dan, yes, the offensive line, come off and get to the linebacker, all these small details, but also let's get Breece Hall in space and find a way to allow him to get off.
But that's one of the things that made me nervous about this Jets offense coming into the season, right? That Breece Hall wasn't going to be able to be effective as we thought he should have up until this point. Aaron Rodgers, the last two games versus Minnesota, 54 pass attempts, The week previous to that versus the Denver Broncos, 42 pass attempts. Those are the most in back-to-back games for Aaron Rodgers, thank you, Himbo, since 2019 of December.
Yeah.
You can't live in that space. You can't think you're going to be a playoff contender. You can't think that you're going to be a Super Bowl contender if you can't run the football effectively. You can't be 32nd and just say, hey, Aaron Rodgers at 40-plus years old, go do it for us. It's not going to work.
I still believe that there's an overreaction right now in totality with the last two games.
Because of the defenses.
Minnesota and Denver have made every offense look bad. C.J. Stroud, Brock Purdy, Jordan Love. There's been one quarterback that's played good in the 10 games.
I got pushback, though.
Who?
I got pushback. You have Aaron Rodgers. Why did you go get Aaron Rodgers?
Sure.
For that reason, right?
Of course.
That's why you go and get him.
Of course, Harry. But when you're the worst offense in the NFL on first and second down, there's only so much a quarterback can do. Now, does he play a part in that because he has missed some throws? For sure. But there's drops. We did a breakdown yesterday on NFL Live. A drop on second down screen. A drop on by Allen Lazard on second down. So, yes, you get Aaron Rodgers to hopefully minimize some of that. But there's also a reality that ball is ball. And when you're playing against the elite defense,
but he can't throw 3 picks. Maybe we're not productive. You can't throw 3 picks.
Totally agree.
Well, how about this? Again, 2 tough defenses in the Denver Broncos and Minnesota. Defenses that are playing as well as anybody else. They haven't played well, the Jets have. They've fallen behind early, had a lot of penalties. And if they win Monday night, despite the fact that they became the first team in the league this year to fire their head coach, if they win Monday night, they're in first place.
Well, that's the big thing right here in this whole ordeal is that they're still in arm's reach of the division versus Houston and versus the Baltimore Ravens covering running backs out of the backfield. You have to take advantage of that if you're Todd Downing or if you're Nathaniel Hackett calling plays.
This is not a save our season type of thing for me with the Jets. This is like, hey, we got to settle down and play better. Not only are they a game out of or with Monday night, the first place on the line. Then they play New England and Pittsburgh, both very gettable games. Everything that was ever out in front or as a goal for the New York Jets is squarely there.
Which is why it makes sense to me, Schefty, and you and I talked about this on Sunday NFL Countdown, and you said that if they lost that game on Sunday in Minnesota, against Minnesota, which of course they did, that you thought the owner would be less inclined to make a trade for Davante Adams. But here's what I would say. If you've done what he's done, you are obviously making the statement, I believe in the season. I feel like we need to make a coaching change. This is too good a team not to go for it. Everything that they have done has been go for it, go for it, go for it. To me, to then not give up what you would have to give up to bring in a guy in Davante Adams who would obviously make a huge difference, that doesn't feel like it makes sense to me.
But that's where they have been this week, and that's where they were the week before when they lost to Denver. Now, if we get to Monday night, and they win a big game against the Bills in front of a home crowd, and all of a sudden they're in first place, do you think the owner is going to be a little bit more enthused about trading for Davante Adams? I would think, yes. You're getting excited, Grady. I can just see it.
It's the finger.
I've moved on. You said we need to move on. I've moved on. I
feel like Greedy's going to put on a fireman hat and get out there Monday night, right?
Down, ready to go. I mean, things were where they were, and now all of a sudden they can be where they are. I mean, you beat Buffalo and you get Davante Adams, and now things are looking a little Todd Downing, Al Downing. I don't care who the coach is. You got to let somebody figure out the offense, and away we go.
But they need a little bit of positive momentum, which they can get Monday night. If they get that positive momentum, they're there hanging in on Davante Adams. The Raiders have not gotten what they wanted from anybody, and probably aren't going to get what they want from anybody. So they're going to have to come to a recognition that they're not getting a second-round draft pick. And what are they going to get? And is a team like the Jets going to step up, or is it going to be a team like Pittsburgh or Baltimore or Buffalo, another team that steps in?
What are these other teams doing?
Well, they're monitoring the situation.
You told me this morning. What was the word you used this morning?
Lurking.
They're lurking.
Other teams are lurking.
Yes. This morning, Schefty, he's got looming and he's got lurking. There's teams lurking.
Am I fair to pick up that you said if they're not going to get a second, the Raiders? So implying that they may not or likely not to?
I don't think they will.
This is the easiest decision in the NFL so far this season. If it's going to take a third or fourth round pick from the Jets to go get Davante Adams, you're telling them that, hey, you're a third round pick for Odell when he went to the Rams, a third round pick for AB when he went to the Bucs. This is the easiest decision that Joe Douglas has had as a general manager. If that's what it takes, absolute no-brainer, go get Davante Adams. This is easy.
if the price is going to lower, you continue to.
Dog, a third-round pick for Davante Adams.
But if nobody's willing to give it, then give a fourth. I just think the business of the NFL, like Schefty just said, where they were like, it's going to take a second-round pick.
I mean, if
no one's going to give
that's what the Raiders say.
That's what they said.
That's what they
and
say.
And if no one's willing to give it, then hell, we're not going to be the ones to give it to you.
Would you trade a third or a fourth-round pick for a legitimate 1,000-yard receiver?
Right now, today, no. We just fired our head coach.
Oh, my
I need
God.
to figure out exactly.
You are out of your mind.
I need to figure out exactly what we have going on before I'm giving up.
You don't have to figure out anything. You just tell that person to go.
ESPN has been good.
Hey, Smith.